Hi, and welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where two friends are going to compulsively mainline history memes, download 24-hour long audiobooks on very niche topics just to really focus in on 30 minutes of the book, and then spend the rest of our time trying to find gobs of sources and hoping to hell the other person has never heard this story. I'm host one. I'm Teresa. That is host two.
I'm Angie. You spoke of that 24-hour audiobook for 30 minutes of it like that's what you did last Tuesday.
Look, I'm still a good chunk of time away from finishing one of said audiobooks, and it will be a short story.
I love that for you. I get to go today. It's my turn.
You decided to take the full episode because I panic texted you and just went, are you sure you're a whole episode? Because I am woefully unprepared. And then told my husband, we have done 3 years of homework without taking a single week off.
We're not starting this week.
And Mike said, you have your bachelor's in the Unhinged History podcast almost, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So we have that going
hmm
for us, but I'm going to let you take over.
Okay. So I don't when you being neurospicy is funny because we have a a wide variety of special interests that don't correlate with any of our other special interests, but somehow for us they do. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
This
you
is
mean
one
a
of
history
those.
meme as I do some needlework? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, are you familiar with the Amber Room?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the whole story of the Amber Room? Because
I
I'm going to tell you
bel
about it whether you know or
Yeah, you're
not.
gonna, I know, this is what I'm locked in for. What I know came from a series of like 2.5 minute TikTok videos.
Okay, cool. So, my sources are an Atlas Obscure article by Stefan Bachman and April Genevieve Tolchek from February of 2024. Uh, a Warfare History Network article because we have to include that
I
from
mean, yeah,
February
that
of 2016, right?
it's either that, the Park Service, or syphilis.
Yeah, honestly. And I don't think I get to see syphilis one time in this episode, so
It's
thank you for
because of
bringing
this
it up.
podcast I've learned how to spell it.
Honestly. Um, a Smithsonian article by Jess Bloomberg from July of 2007 called A Brief History of the Amber Room. And then I love the show History's Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne. Have you watched any of these?
No.
It's so fun. It's like unsolved mysteries, but historical stories, right? And Lawrence Fishburne is the narrator, so I'm gonna listen to every one of them. Um, so th those are my sources. I have a couple others, like more recent articles that I just looked for to see what was happening currently. Okay, so that said, I am bringing you an unresolved story, and I know you're just gonna love me so much for it.
Bring it on.
Okay. Backstory. So Amber, I don't know a ton about Amber, so sorry to those of you that do, but it's hardened tree sap. It's like 44 million years old. Most of what we find, like 90% of what we find today, comes from an area around the Baltic Sea. Now, thousands of years ago, sticky resin starts oohing out of the pine trees in Eastern Europe, and then it builds up on the forest floor. And then over time, the Earth's surface shifts and the ice age comes and goes, and the land floods and becomes the Baltic Sea. Okay, blah, blah, blah. There's your geography
Blah, blah,
lesson for the
blah.
day.
30 million years later.
Yeah, okay, so pieces of amber break free from the seafloor and they wash up on the beaches where people start collecting them. And people then start calling it the quote, gold of the North because it's so valuable. At the time, most of it turns up along the eastern Baltic coastline from Danzig in Germany up to Estonia. So it's like a region of the world where it's really, really concentrated. as amber becomes more popular, people start actively hunting for it. And at first, because it's coming up from the bottom of the ocean floor, they're using like these big nets to scoop it up from the water, which is wild to me to think of like something like a gemstone being scooped up in nets. But anyway, um, many of these workers they end up as they're enslaved by Teutonic Knights who make an absolute fortune selling the amber. By the 13th century, the knights who control this trade and operation, they centered their amber commerce around the newly built Königsberg Castle on the Pregel River. That's going to come back later. It's going to be really important. But at the moment, just know that when amber was being like mass circulated around the world, it was its center of commerce was Königsberg Castle in the 13th century from Teutonic Knights. Okay. In the 15th century, things change. The Protestant Reformation sweeps across Europe. The Teutonic Knights, they give up Catholicism and they become Lutherans, which is also wild to me. Did not see that coming. At this point, they transfer their lands into a territory that at the time is going to be the Duchy of Prussia, who will, like, it's controlled by Poland at this time. Later, Prussia breaks free and becomes like independent. But in 1701, their leader, Frederick III, becomes King Frederick I of Prussia. This is Frederick the Great's grandfather.
Okay, so the tie into your Potato King has been firmly established.
Yes. And I need you to know how many times I checked that family tree because they are all called Frederick. Now, this Frederick, he marries Sophie Charlotte in 1684. And because, once again, life doesn't happen in a vacuum, she is the great granddaughter of King James I of England. And she loves art and culture. And she spends a great deal of her time trying to make Berlin, which at the time is Prussia's capital, beautiful and impressive. Like, that's her goal. So in 1696, she hires a German Baroque sculptor named Andres Schluter to redesign the royal palace. So Schluter kind of goes looking about to see what he can work with. Like, what do we got, right? And he finds several chests packed with amber down in the cellar, like more than he'd ever seen in one place.
So
So
this
he's
is the
like,
equivalent of finding the treasure chest full of gold. And you're just like, we had this full of rubies and diamonds.
pretty much. And he's like,
Okay.
well, we could do something with this. So in 1701, construction of the Amber Room begins. Now, originally, it's intended for Charlottenburg Palace, which would have been home to Frederick I. Um, but one of the things that's super special about the Amber Room is that it really is an international like feat of collaboration. So the room itself, it's designed by this German sculptor, Andre Schluter, who I mentioned earlier, but it's constructed by a Danish amber craftsman called Gottfried Wilfram. So, in a nutshell, what has happened is when Schluter finds all the amber in the cellars, he comes up with this idea to make an entire room out of it. So, he designs the plans for such a room that would be, quote, a complete chamber decorated from floor to ceiling with amber panels backed with gold leaf covered with mirrors, polished mosaics, carvings of nymphs, cupids, angels, a coat of arms, monograms, and inlays. Some small, some so small the observer needed a magnifying glass to see them. So that's
Wow.
when the Danish carver gets to work, right? So over the next few years, a method is sort of evolved by Wolfram of bonding these amber slivers into much larger pieces. And in doing so, he creates 46 massive amber panels. 12 of them will be 12 feet tall,
Jeez.
which is insane to me. But then in 1705, Sophie Charlotte dies and Schluter falls out of favor. And that's basically a nice way of saying that he's banished from court. And then shortly after, Wilfram is fired. Okay, so I was curious, like, why he would have been banished for court. So this really isn't part of the story, but I just think it's funny, like I had to tell you. I thought because the way the timeline goes is the queen dies and then he's banished. So my brain immediately is like, oh, he has something to do with her death.
Oh, I was
Right? No,
thinking that
she,
he's a dick and she was the only one protecting him because he was like, "Oh, I know how to create this beautiful thing." And they're like, "Okay, she's dead. We literally don't care. Goodbye."
well, actually, you're probably closer to right because what had happened is other other people in court, they start complaining about some structural integrity on another building, and as it comes out, he's not the best at his job. And
Oh,
so he gets banished because hey, your other buildings are failing.
he lied on his
And
resume.
he, basically, yeah. And so because he's banished and like not working on the Amber Room anymore, Wolfram, the the Amber Craftsman, he's also fired. By 1707, it's being looked after by Amber Masters Gottfried Terua and Ernest Schnicht from Danzig. So it's done but not at this point. But then in 1713, Frederick I dies and is succeeded by his son, Frederick Wilhelm, who is much more interested in building a strong Prussian army than he is with these amber panels. So it sort of just sits almost complete at the Berlin City Palace until 1716 when Russia's Peter the Great sees it. And he's like, oh, hey, that's a cool room. I like that.
Hey, that's real pretty.
Pretty much. And Frederick's like, well, I he is hurting for an alliance with Russia. Like something real. So, and he has no purpose for this room. So he's like, "Oh, you want it? You can take it. Like it's cool. Like I don't need it. Live your dream." So, the panels are carefully packed into crates and they are transported to Peter's summer palace in St. Petersburg. So that's how it ends up in Russia. So, upon arrival, some pieces are broken or missing and no one can figure out how to assemble them, which cracks me up. So they have no instructions left from the original creators. So the amber basically sits unused for nearly 20 years after Peter the Great dies in 1725. Now, in 1743, Empress Elizabeth takes the throne and she orders the amber moved to her winter palace, where the Italian sculptor Alexander Martelli successfully solves the puzzle and he's able to assemble the panels. She's still unsatisfied, so she has the room relocated 3 more times because she
Oh,
can do that.
I mean, that's the when you have that kind of power and wealth, it's one of those. That's the equivalent of me saying, "No, honey, I want you. Can you move that bookshelf over here?" And yeah, I'm gonna need you to put
Yeah,
all the books back so I can see how it looks. That doesn't fit right. Can you move it
yeah. It's
back?
like, yeah, I want the pool 2 inches to the left, please. Um, yeah. So, like I said, it's relocated 3 more times. Mirrors are added, and then some amber frames. Eventually, it covers over 55 square meters and contains 6 tons of amber,
Good
which
night.
is crazy to me. Now, in 1755, the room is moved to Elizabeth's niece, Catherine's palace. Like,
She's great.
yeah, Catherine the Great. And she adds around 900 more pounds of amber. She installs large windows and commissions these 4 stone mosaics that represent like the senses. When complete, visitors marvel that the chamber literally comes alive in the candlelight, like it glows, like it is just stunning. And it would sit there in this splendor and glory for almost 200 years until just after June 22nd, 1941.
Oh, is that after
When you
Operation
guessed it,
Barbarossa when that relationship between German and Russia goes kaput?
you guessed it. 99 German divisions, including 14 panzer divisions and 10 motorized divisions, storm into the Soviet Union. They are going from the Baltic to the Black Sea. And according to War History Online, quote, for a month, the Nazi blitzkrieg was unstoppable, and in the north, the Army Group Field Marshal Wilhelm Ritter von Liebig moved closer to its objective, the Soviet Union's second city of Leningrad. Okay, here's where the story gets interesting. Hitler puts out an order to preserve the priceless works of art at the Catherine Palace. In fact, he says, do not destroy the Catherine Palace until the Amber Room is found. So that's kind of interesting. Now, there are those that say basically, of all the art that Hitler wants, it's the Amber Room that he wants the most.
This checks.
Because, right? I mean, Hitler is a staunch nationalist, and it drives him nuts that the Russians have this masterpiece that he considers to be of German origin. And he wants it back in the hands of Germany. So here's the thing. After the siege of Leningrad, which was formerly St. Petersburg, where Catherine's palace sits, we don't see the Amber Room again. Like, period. So it just grows feet
Evaporates.
and walks away. Yeah. The last confirmed thing we know is that Hitler specifically sends troops in with instructions, as I said, to not destroy the palace and find the Amber Room. Now, here's where it gets super dicey. Supposedly, they can't find it. Now, to their credit, which I never thought I would be defending a Nazi here, but to their credit, the Catherine Palace features over 1,000 rooms, including 40 grand halls and over 100 private apartments. So, I mean, I get them not finding it the first time. I feel
It's
like maybe that's a heck of a walk.
it's like, well, I mean, but we put chalk X's on every door we checked. Every door has a check. We've checked every door.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, what do you think happened? Just based on this little bit that I've told you.
I mean, I'm going to assume at some point somebody goes disassemble the room, hide everything. Kind of like how Europe purged all of the artifacts they could to hide in like salt mines, or actually I think that was the Nazis that hid them there. But I mean, you look at like museums that were just like put everything we've got in the basement.
Yeah. Okay. So let me hit you with some theories about what they think happened. One of my favorite things about this mystery is that some of these theories actually work together. Like it could be option A, it could be option B, or it could be a little bit of either column, right? So off the bat, we have a man called Anatoly Kuchumov, who's the curator and is told to move whatever he can of the palace deeper into Russia long before the Nazis get there. But he runs into a problem. Over the 200 years that the Amber Room has been chilling in the Catherine Palace, it's gotten brittle and really fragile. And because he lacks time and resources
He
to
just
like,
shatters it.
he hides it.
Oh, like just
He does
puts up a couple of false walls in front, calls it good.
covers so supposedly this is what they say. He covers the room in floor to ceiling thick wallpaper. So when the Nazis go looking room to room, they just see this sort of nondescript whatever, like receiving room or whatever you're gonna call it. But one of them makes like another sweet pass, and he sees in this room, like I said, sort of just a room, nothing to write home to mom about. He notices a little bit of plaster on the floor and a little bit of bubbling in the wallpaper right at the seam. And because he is nosy as hell, he sticks his finger into the wallpaper and like pulls it up a bit. Then behind the wallpaper is like the sheepskin backing that they would have used. But
Okay.
behind that, he sees the glow of the room. Now, as the story goes, the Nazis have literally all the time in the world and all the hands they need. So
At this
they
point of the
take,
war, yeah, it's fairly early on.
right, they take the next 2 days and they carefully pack it up and they take it back to Königsberg Castle, which is now part of Germany. Now, initially, right, it wasn't never in Königsberg Castle, but that's the castle that the Teutonic Knights ran their operation out of. So I just think it's really funny that it would find its way there, one way or the other. On November 13th of 1941, a newspaper article goes out saying there will be an exhibit at the castle, Königsberg, and the room will be featured. This is the only evidence to support this. There are no photographs and nothing else to prove that it was ever there or that this exhibit ever even happened. Because obviously, the West is not trying to get into Königsberg right now.
We're a
So,
little busy.
right. Now, fast forward a few years to August of 1944, the RAF bombs the crap out of Königsberg, and then the Soviets take the city after some really intense shelling. By April of 45, the city is 90% destroyed and most of the castle with it, which sort of super sucks for the Soviets because it would be awfully embarrassing if they destroy their own art in the process. P.S. This art is worth over $500 million.
Mm.
So the Soviets are like, oh, maybe, maybe we go look. Maybe we just go check, right? So they send a team led by Professor Alexander Burshoff, and all he's able to find is three of the four Italian mosaics, and they are barbecued.
Ooh.
So he states in his report that between the days of April 9th and April 11th and 45, the room had to have been destroyed. However, there are those that believe he's full of malarkey because
Because he never
evidently,
hosted a dinner party after that. And he always walked around like he carried a big ass secret and a big smile.
well, evidently on the 21st and the 24th of January of that year, Hitler, who is like very aware of the changing tide of war and incoming Allied forces, issues orders to move all the looted material from Königsberg and take it deeper into German territory. Enter this man called Erich Koch. He is a high-ranking Nazi official. He is literally the worst, but he is
That's
also the
saying
person.
something.
I mean, I'm gonna say Barbie was probably the worst, right? But this guy is terrible. Like, he was one of those Nazi officials that was, I'm going to say this later in the story, so now I don't have to say it then, but he was one of those officials that was unrepentant the entire time, and all he did was sing the praise of Hitler and forever
Ugh.
spoke poorly of anybody other than, right? Okay, so he's like the administrative official in charge of all of this stuff, including the police and the Gestapo of the area that encompasses the Ukraine, Belarus, and East Prussia, where Königsberg is situated. And in an interesting turn of events, he flees in January of 45. So, just for dates here, Hitler puts out orders on the 21st and the 24th of January telling them to clear Königsberg Castle, get the looted material out. And then this guy, who is totally in charge of this region, jumps ship. He goes on the run and he stays on the run for about 4 years. He's captured by the British and they take him to Poland to stand trial for his war crimes. But for whatever reason, his death sentence is inexplicably commuted to life in prison. And here's the thing. Most historians look back on this and there's no real reason to have spared him. His crimes were just as bad as any of the other Nazi officials. And like I mentioned, he's super unrepentant. So why are we letting him continue
Right.
breathing when plenty of other Nazis died for less? So people are like, what's the deal with this guy? Now, they think that his sentence was commuted to life in prison after a rather long interrogation by Soviet authorities who believe that at some point he says he knows where the whereabouts of the Amber Room are. And so life in prison is what it is. Now, he says, the story according to him goes that in January of 1945, 24 wooden crates are trucked to a place called Mamenki, which is about 60 miles from Königsberg. Excuse me, I pronounced that wrong. Mamerki. I left the R out the first time. Now, Mamerki is a fortified Nazi stronghold that is serving as the command center for the Eastern Front. I had no idea that that never crossed my mind, but of course they would have strongholds for each front. But I don't know why that like just smacked me in the face. Now, this complex is huge. Above ground, it covers 600 acres. There are 200 buildings, but the underground is even more impressive. It has miles and miles of bunkers and tunnels that the Nazis have, like over the course of the war, built and backfilled as necessary. Based on what Coach says, the Soviets spend the next 20 years searching. No luck,
Whoa.
Bumkus. So in 1970, they collect him from prison and take him to Mamerki, and he points to where he thought it went. And guess what? It's not there. So maybe he's lying. Maybe he just says he knows where it's at to like stay his death a little while longer, but they
Maybe he
allow him to
forgot.
live.
Maybe it moved after.
There are so many variables here, right? Now, today, this area is super overgrown and in big disrepair. But a Polish man called Bartek Plivinchek has a little museum there, and it features all sorts of Nazi and Soviet items that he's found over the years. And it includes a replica of the room itself. So you can like go in, pay a little price to get into his museum and like check everything out. Every year he excavates one new bunker because that's all he can afford to do.
Because he's taking the proceeds from his little museum and doing it.
I That's the way that I understand it. And he is just like hell bent. He knows it's here. So he is going to keep looking until he finds it. However, there has only been 1% searched. So it'll be a minute. Like that's how massive this complex is. And he's been at it for years.
And you
So
know his grandkids are like, there goes Pop Pop.
with a shovel,
It's Tuesday at
oh,
8 o'clock. He's putting in his second shift.
pretty much, yeah. Now, at this time, I'd like to point out, and I think this is wild, but I guess this is how the world works. After the war ended, both the Stasi and the KGB have units dedicated to locating the room. Like that's their only job. And they take tip phone calls and all sort of things for years. So just think that's like a fun little side fact to chew on. Now, I love this option. If Koch is lying, there's another option. Perhaps it's hidden in Czechoslovakia, which seems weird. But there are two German historians that believe this with everything they got. They're called Eric Stenz and George Metterer. And in '07, they see this news report from a woman who was a cook during the war. And she says that towards the end of the war, she's working at a place called Friedland Castle, which is like roughly 270 miles from Königsberg and much further away from the front line. So, anyway, she remembers that towards the end of the war, she sees hundreds of SS soldiers bringing all these crates into the castle and down into the cellar every night for 2 weeks. So she's like, I don't know what's in there, but it seems kind of important. Now, these two historians, Metterer and Stans, they go to Friedland Castle and they start searching and they find these two areas that have been walled off with like modern materials. So they take photos and then they go to the Czech authorities and they ask, hey, can we like look behind the walls in this cellar? And um, the authorities are like, nope.
Okay,
Um,
but now imagine, credentials aside, you are a government official.
mhm.
Angie and Teresa walk up to you, hat in hand, with a couple of Polaroids, asking if we can just knock out a couple of walls.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Well, what's funny is so you would think that their simple response would just be no. Like the Czech authorities don't owe anybody an explanation for why. Just no, leave our castle alone. Thank you so much. But instead, the Czech authorities say, no, there's no cellars down there. And the historians are like, yeah, we got picked, so it happens. And they show the authorities the cellars. And the authorities are then like, oh, you mean that one? Oh, no, you know what? It's just got some old books from a Berlin library back there. It's nothing. You don't need to go back there. But they allow the men to keep working and to keep digging or whatever they're doing down
Digging,
there.
digging where?
Or looking more. I said digging, I just mean like they're looking. There's tunnels and bunkers underneath this castle as well. And so they tell them you can keep looking. Like you can pay your visits to Friedland Castle. You can do what you're going to do. But by no means are you allowed to bring in any sort of tech that can look through those walls.
Why?
Well, they're thinking that the Czechs are holding on to something of significance, like an old grudge. You know, the whole Munich agreement that they got left out of back in 38 that
Oh,
sort of gave their country to Germany? They're thinking that the theory is that they think that the Czechoslovakians have the Amber Room and they're just not going to give it up because y'all didn't include us in the conversation back in 38. So you don't get this back. Now, what I find to be interesting, one way or the other, whether they have the Amber Room or not, why did you wall up a cellar full of books from the Berlin Library? Like, if that's your excuse, if that's what you're saying is down there, why leave it there? Why not bring the books back up?
because the books have been down there so long that the humidity has already destroyed and mildewed the books. The books are toast. They've been toast. They were toast decades ago. It's worthless now. It's worthless.
That's what they're saying. Now, allow me to regale you with my favorite theory. Stalin, this theory involves Stalin and a Russian historian in 1995 called Vladimir Lipsky. Lipsky
Stalin was
believes,
alive in 95?
no, this
Okay.
historian
Okay.
involves Stalin in his
I was
story.
about to
Okay,
say,
so
like, where was I when that was? I thought this timeline
no,
was very different.
very different timeline. So Lipsky is looking back on history, and so basically what happens is Germany and Russia signed something called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Non-Aggression Pact, and basically it partitions Poland by the two countries, and the goal is to try and slow Germany's march toward war. Okay, Stalin is looking at what Germany's up to in the 30s, and he's like, we can't do another war. Like, we just did this. We're all still recovering.
Yeah, I've wiped out all of my top generals. Like I'm bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, like we got nothing. So Stalin at this point is doing what he can to slow the German tide, basically. Like he's just, for the love of God, man, please, can we just be allies? Can you just be nice? So to commemorate the signing of the pact, Stalin orders a copy of the Amber Room made for Hitler to gift to him when he comes to Russia as an ally.
So Stalin basically rubs it in Hitler's face that we got the original neener, neener, neener.
No, in Stalin's mind, Stalin is going to give Hitler this replica as a like peace gift, like
Sure,
an
but I
offering,
mean,
right?
I can only imagine Hitler's like, no, you keep the copy. I want the master.
Well, I'm sure that's what Hitler did, but it doesn't matter because Hitler doesn't keep to the non-aggression pact and just rolls on into the Soviet Union.
That's true.
But before that, when Stalin's like, "Hey, I'm gonna have an amber room built for you," he commissions this master craftsman called Anatoly Branansky to build this amber room. So Anatoly builds one, and his apprentices build a second one. So there are two additional amber rooms floating around. Now, in Stalin's genius here, he's like, hey, I'm going to build you an amber room. It's not going to cost $500 million, more like 10 to 15 million. but it's the idea of the thing, right? So then, as I mentioned, Hitler breaks the non-aggression pact and he invades Russia. Now, Stalin's not stupid and he knows Hitler loves to take other people's pretty things. So this historian, Vladimir Lipsky, believes that before the Nazis invade Russia, the Russians swap out the original room for the production.
For the fake.
Yes. And this could work because the copies are made in May of 41 and the Nazis don't arrive until September. So the Nazis are duped. But that begs the question, where's the real room? Now, I find this to be very interesting. I don't know if I believe this part, but supposedly there's this man called Armand Hammer. And every time I say that, all I can think of is Armand Hammer, right?
And the man bakes quite well.
And cleans. It's brilliant. Um, he is a pro-Soviet billionaire in the US. Now, he thinks that not well, Hammer doesn't think this, but there's this belief that when Stalin has the reproduction put into the palace, he packs up the original Amber Room and he sends it to Hammer in the US as a sort of collateral for their business dealings, but also to keep it safe. Whether or not that's true is irrelevant because it's just awesome that Stalin may have thought this through. In 79, another copy of the Amber Room is ordered and installed in the Catherine Palace. Germany helps to pay for it. Now, there are those that believe that in 79, when the Amber Room is installed in the Catherine Palace, all Russia did was take the original Amber Room out of storage and reinstall it back in the palace.
That is a brilliant conspiracy.
And to be honest, I think that's the truth because Stalin knows that Hitler wants the Amber Room. What better way than to just hide the stupid thing in plain sight? Like
But you
I
say
will
that, but
give you the wallpapered fake room, but behind it is another reproduction. Brilliant.
I don't
Go
know. I
ahead.
mean, because I know we have reports of like Winston Churchill calling Stalin and being like, yo, I know you have this non-aggression pact at play with Hitler, but hey, we got reports that it's going to go sideways for you. He's
Right.
gearing up to invade. And Stalin was like, nah, not my bro. We're cool.
I think it doesn't stop Stalin from still trying to protect his art, right? Like you said, how many museums hid everything in the basement while we waited? So that's what I think happens. Now, there are a couple of other theories, and I don't buy these two for nothing, but these seem to be the ones that a lot of people are like cashing out on. During Operation Hannibal, when Hitler's like, "Oh crap, we got to get everybody like out. We got to evacuate. Like the Allies are coming. We got problems." There are two ships, the William Gustav and the USS Karlsruhe, and there are people that believe that the Amber Room is on either of these two ships. Both of them. Okay, the William Gustav takes off from an area a lot further away from Königsberg than Karlsruhe. The Karlsruhe harbors in a area that's like within walking distance to the Königsberg Castle. So these two ships, they take off like relatively close to each other, like probably within hours. Both of them are torpedoed and sunk.
Back to the ocean floor whence they came. If the
Right.
Emperor's on board.
Right. Now, for years, people were like, oh, it's definitely on the William Gustav. That's where it is. Well, so Soviet divers go down. I can't remember the year. I didn't put the year in my notes, so I apologize. Soviet divers go down and they get to like the storage area of where the ship would have been, and one section of it is missing. All the other stuff is there. except for one section. Like, it's as if somebody's already been there. But the problem is the sinking of the Wilhelm Gustave is considered one of the greatest maritime tragedies in history. When that ship was torpedoed, it took 9,000 souls with it.
Jeez, that's a
So,
big boat.
so basically it's a protected gravesite, right? So now divers can't go down. Like they are not allowed to touch it at all because emotional reasons.
Right. Now, yeah.
But the Karlsruhe isn't. Now, it did take souls with it, but there are divers currently, or at least as far as
I,
2020, diving on this ship.
I like how you say currently, like, hey, right now, as of we're recording, the dive started 30 minutes ago. They are about halfway
It could have
down.
been. Here's the thing, there's no updates since 2020. Um, the problem with where this particular ship went down is the area that it went down in the Baltic Sea is incredibly like the current and the way the wind operates. So they require special equipment and the way that they have to actually anchor their ship. It's a whole undertaking that is incredibly costly. And the divers that go down have to be specifically trained for this type of condition. And they have to have a member from like the Antiquities Commission with them on the dive. So they've been down. They found the Karlsruhe. Now, for years, nobody knew where it was. They found it. They've located it. When they went in 2020 on that initial dive, they found crates. They found perfectly preserved military vehicles, like with the rubber still on the tires. But because of the monumental undertaking, it will probably be years before we hear anything, if ever, that comes from this. I personally stand on the fact that Hitler, if he had it, even if he had a reproduction, what does he know? Wouldn't have put it on a boat. My
Why not?
reasoning is this. He knows this area of the Baltic is heavily torpedoed all the time. Why would you put something worth $500 million that you have literally sent men in to find and crate up on a ship in a like motorcade of ships that you know have a potential of being bombarded when you can
Because
just truck it to a castle 60 miles south?
because it's Hitler, and by the end, he was rather panicked in a lot of his decisions.
Maybe, but I don't know. I don't buy it. So anyway, that's that's the unsolved mystery of the Amber Room. I like to believe that the original is still sitting proudly in the Catherine Palace and never left Russia in the first place.
I mean, that part is grand, and I like that concept.
That's my favorite idea. But the thing is, we will actually probably never know unless some very corroborated journal comes out or something that people can prove. There are so many replicas now, it would be so hard to be able to be like, well, we think this is the original. No, actually, this might be the original. Well, no, actually, this is the original. So who knows? But there you have it.
So, where are the replicas? Where can are we stuck going to the one in Poland to help the guy dig?
So you, I mean, I suppose you could. You can go to the Catherine Palace and see the one that's there. I don't know where the second replica is that was made by Stalin. I don't know where the one that he could write because he had the master craftsman and then his apprentices made one. I'm unclear where the apprentice one is today. That could have been the one that the Nazis took off with that we can't find. So well, there could be three in the ground somewhere, and that guy in Poland could pull one up, and then and then the guys in Friedland Castle could pull one up, and then like who knows?
Now, wouldn't it be hilarious if they all came up the same day, fought for news coverage?
So the 2 days ago, I thought, you know what? Since I know of this excavation that they're trying to pull off in the Baltic Sea, I wonder if there's any current news. Like, wonder if they've released anything further. And 2 days ago, I looked it up, and there are a couple of news blurps from like August of this year, and there is a
August of this year
region.
being August of 2025.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, August of 2025. I just I just realized 26.
Welcome to the future, Angie.
August of 2025, there is a region in Poland that is just received permits for like dig permits. So we'll see. There hasn't been anything since then. That's the most recent news to come up. I'm excited,
That is actually pretty dang exciting. I'm not even gonna kid.
right? Pretty cool. So that's the Ember Room. And my Potato King, I got to mention him, which was
You did,
awesome.
you did. I'm really appreciative that he got mentioned again. Um, I realized when we were talking, I'd mentioned the Operation Barbarossa, and we talked about that during the Night Witches episode. So let me see if we can link up. Let me find Frederick the Great so we can t figure out where that one was.
I think he's episode 7.
He was episode 7, Hot Diggity. And then the Night Witches, which had Operation Barbarossa, kind of, the start of the German-Russian aspect of the conflict in World War II. That was episode 87 with the Night Witches.
I love them. That's all. I think they're badass.
They were incredibly badass. And if you're thinking, holy crap, I need to share this with somebody who is also badass, do it. Do it now.
Please.
And then rate, review, subscribe, jump in on that Patreon, get access to those ad-free. We also, if you're a paid member, we have a version of the spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet is where you can go, did they talk about the start of the Red Cross yet? No, I think they have. They did. Oh, they did. And they've also talked about the disappearance of Agatha Christie, the whole nine. But there's a variety of things. These are all the things that are there. Rate, review, subscribe. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.